Hello, everyone. Today we're just going to talk about Philippine literature. And I know that this is one of the topics that you have to master as you prepare for your licensure exam for teachers. So let's get started. Okay, so first of all, we have to be familiar with the meaning of literature. So, literature deals with ideas, thoughts, and emotions of man. It is said to be the story of man. Literature, as a faithful production of man's manifold experiences, blends into one harmonious expression. Okay, so that's the key definition of literature. So you may ask, what are the three reasons that we should study literature? Why do we have to study literature first of all? So there are three main reasons that we have to remember. The first one is so that we can be familiar with Philippine history and traditions. Number two is so that we can better appreciate our literary heritage and pass it on to the next generation through teaching. And thirdly, so that we can comprehend our great and noble traditions like other nations. I hope those are clear. So before we delve into the popular Philippine literature, the key terms, and some random facts about Philippine literature, let's just have a quick glance at popular literary pieces. And the first one that we're gonna look at or just mention is Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin was written by Harriet Beecher Stowe of the US, and this story depicted the sad fate of the slaves, and this became the basis of democracy later on. And if you have been told, you may remember that um, this has been the literary piece that inspired Jose Rizal to write the very popular novel of his, which is No Limitang Hire. Okay, so the next popular literary piece that we'll just mention in passing in this lesson is the Book of Days. Okay, so this was written by Confucius of China, and this became the basis of Roman calendar. So if this appears in the let exam, you know the answer. If the question asks for the literary piece that was written by Confucius of China and the one that became the basis of Roman calendar, that is the Book of Days. The Book of Days, the basis of the Roman calendar. Now, you may want to remember that autobiography is defined as a literary work that deals with the life of a person, which may be about himself, his autobiography, or that of others. Okay, so auto um, means self, and biography means the story of one's life. So one's own story of life. That's autobiography. If you just say biography, you can it can be a story of somebody else's life, and I can write the biography of someone significant in our history. So we can call that biography, but if you write your own life story, you would call that an autobiography. Okay. So let's talk about the Iliad and Odyssey. So these have been the sources of myths and legends of Greece, and they were written by the popular writer Homer. So we will not give so much details, but I hope that you are familiar with this literary piece. Now, it is said that Malayo Polynesian alphabet is the first alphabet used by our ancestors, and the Filipino alphabet was similar to this alphabet, Malayo-Polynesian alphabet. And if you would learn the Malayo-Polynesian language, there are similar words compared to the language that we use in the Philippines. Okay, folk tales. These are made up stories about life, adventure, love, horror, and humor where one can derive lessons about life. Ito yung mga kwento na pinagpasa-pasa lang sa bibig or sa kwentong ng mga magkakapit-bahay. Originally, yung mga folk tales, wala silang written record. Next, epics. You have to remember that epics are long narrative poems in which a series of heroic exploits of events are told, usually of a hero, and are dealt with length. Okay, so we have some popular epics. Do you know any popular epics? Can you give any example? Beowulf is said to be one of the earliest epics. We also have the Epic of Gilgamesh. It is said to be the oldest epic in world literature. Okay, so when talking about Filipino epic, we have the very popular Hudhud at Alim. So they are epics of the Ifugao. The Hudhud and Alim chants are listed as masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage of humanity in the Philippine Registry. So remember that Hudhud and Alim are epics of the Ifugao. Now, let's remember some key Philippine literary terms that may appear in your exams. So the first one is Oyayi. It is also known as Hele, the Filipino lullaby. So when you think of Oyayi, you think of Pampahele, the Filipino lullaby, pampatulog ng mga bata. Okay, Salawikain. Salawikain is also known as epigrams in English. They are customarily used and served as laws or rules on good behavior by our ancestor. So can you think of any example? The one example that I can remember is ang hindi lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. So, ano bang ibig sabihin nito? Kung hindi tayo tatanaw ng utang na loob sa mga taong tumulong sa atin in the past when we were in need, hindi rin natin makakamit yung tagumpay na inaasam natin, right? Yun yung mga salawihain natin sa Pilipinas. So, ano pa ba yung mga natatandaan nyo? Meron ba? Okay, you can comment them down in the chat box. Okay, sawikain. Don't be confused. They are simple sayings with no hidden meanings. So we can take them as literally. Okay? Now, maxims. Maxims are rhyming couplets with verses of 5, 6, 7, or 8 syllables, in each line having the same number of syllables. Okay? That's based on Google. Now, some more Philippine literary terms we have bulong or chant. They are used in witchcraft and enchantment in our ancient customs and practices. As you may remember, most Filipinos or many Filipinos in the past were animists, so they would use witchcraft and enchantment. Another key term that we have in Philippine literature is bugtong. In English, we would call them riddle. Okay? Ano ba yung mga examples na naalala nyo? Baboy ko sa Mariveles. Naalala nyo yun? Yung ang tinik ay nasa labas. Something like that. So, yun yung mga riddles natin. Or, anong sagot doon? Langka, 'di ba? Meron pang isa, may hindi tao, hindi hayop, may apat na paa pero hindi nakakalakad. So, ano yung sagot doon? Pwedeng lamesa, pwedeng silya. Yun yung mga bugtong. Corrido. This is a general term for Filipino romance songs or poems, and they're also known as metric romances. Okay? Corrido. Filipino romance songs or poems, and they're also known as metric romances, but they are different from kundiman. Kundiman are mm, not really metric. I think they usually use free verses. Hindi siya as poetic as corrido. Okay. Now, some more random facts. We have the Alibata, the first Filipino alphabet. Alibata, the first Filipino alphabet. Alibata, the first Filipino alphabet. Next, we have the Doctrina Christiana, the first book printed in the Philippines in 1593 in xylography. Okay, next we have The Passion, a book about the life and sufferings of Jesus Christ in Philippine literature. I think that should be easy for you. Now, Urbana at Felisa is a book by Modesto de Castro, the so called father of classic prose in Tagalog, and this is also known as an epistolary novel. Bakit epistolary? Epistle, right? Pag sinabi nating epistle, sulat. So, within the novel ay merong pagpapalitan ng mga sulat. That's why it's an epistolary novel by Modesto de Castro. Now, as I have said, we will just be going through some important random facts na makikita natin sa Philippine literature. Another key term that we have to remember is the panunuluyan, a presentation of the search of the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph for an inn. Their um, for an inn to deliver the baby Jesus. So I don't know if you are from a place where this is still observed. As for me, I am from Cavite, Tagaytay to be specific, and this is still observed um, in our place. So we know how it looks like. Okay, so there would be actors like Joseph and Mary. They will knock on your doors, on the doors of your houses, and then they will ask if they could have a place for Jesus or have a place for Mary to deliver Jesus. Okay, so the next keyword that we have here is the sainete. It's a short musical comedy popular during the 18th century. Okay, so the sainete is a short musical comedy popular during the 18th century. Remember that, a short musical comedy popular during the 18th century, the sainete. Sarumbangi, the national song of the Bicolanos. Sarumbangi, the national song of the Bicolanos. Now, if yung Bicolanos merong sarumbangi, yung mga Ilocanos, they have a dirge or lament, a song of lament in in the Lahos region, and they call that the Dungao. Okay. Now we still have a few more here. We have the Alfabetismo is the sequel of No Limitang Hire. No Limitang Hire was published in Berlin, and Alfabetismo was published in Gent. Okay, so they were published in two different places, but were written by one author. And sino siya? Of course, everyone knows, Jose Rizal. Now, Diaryong Tagalog was established by Marcel H. Del Pilar na meron ding mga pen names like Plaridel, Dolores Manapat, and Pupdo. Okay, so it was established in 1882, and that's where he expressed the evils of the Spanish government in the Philippines. All right, now we also have the La Solidaridad, and this became the official voice of the Asociación Hispano de Filipinas. It should have been written in Spanish way, Asociación Hispano de Filipinas. And La Liga Filipina is a civic organization suspected of being revolutionary and which triggered Rizal's banishment to Dapitan. Dahil sa La Liga Filipina, napagsuspensyahan ang mga Pilipino ng pagtataksil sa mga Kastila at ito yung nagdala din para mapatapon sa Dapitan si Rizal, si Dr. Jose Rizal. Now, some more key people that we need to remember is Julian Felipe. He became popular because of his Himno Nacional Filipino or the Philippine National Anthem. Siya yung naglapat ng musika ng Himno Nacional Filipino. Pero sino yung nagsulat? Si Jose Palma. Just remember Palma, palm, siya yung nagsulat. Ginamit ang kanyang palma. Okay? Yun yung turo ng ating mga coaches. Okay, the Philippine flag. Alright? So, syempre, nasakop tayo ng iba't ibang mga lahi. So, meron tayong naging Philippine flag na naging simbolo ng ating kalayaan or independence. At ito ay naiwagayway or it was hoisted on June 12, 1898. Okay, so remember those key um, or that key date, June 12th. Madali naman yung June 12, pero yung year 1898, kailangan natin tandaan. Okay, another key literary work by a Filipino, specifically, or Aurelio Tolentino, is Kahapon, Ngayon at Bukas, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. So this work was written to depict the suppression done by the Americans in their plan to colonize um, in the Philippines. So kung yung No Limitang Hire, yung El Filibusterismo were written to expose how the Spaniards were treating us in the past. Ito naman kahapon, ngayon at bukas, or yesterday, today, and tomorrow, ay nag-expose kung paano tayo sinoppress ng mga Americans at paano nila pinlano na sakupin ang Pilipinas. All right. So we have some more facts here. They are unfamiliar, not very popular, but sinong magsasabi kung lalabas pa sila sa exam or hindi. So we have Crisalidas. It's a book of Fernando Maria Guerrero, which means kind of black woolly caterpillar. A book of Fernando Maria Guerrero, which means kind of black woolly caterpillar. Now, another key or significant person we need to remember is the first woman poet in the Philippines who was good in Spanish. Good in Spanish. How I wish I could be like her. You know, one of my dream languages to learn is Spanish. When I graduated from a Bible college, the director of our college knew or learned that I really wanted to learn Spanish, and he gave me two books on Spanish. But I never really had the chance to read through the book and learn Spanish. But I learned that there's a missionary couple going to a Spanish speaking country, so I decided to give them away to my missionary friends. So, anyway, just a side story. But let's get back to our point. So, Adelina Guerria is the first woman poet in the Philippines who was good in Spanish. Now, Lope K. Santos. Don't forget this name, Lope K. Santos, because he's the father of national language grammar. So, siya yung ama ng balarilang Pilipino, balarila. Grammar yan sa English. So, who said that even a king can be bent by a pen? It was Amado F. Hernandez who said that. Now, Inigo Ed Regalado was a son of a popular writer during the Spanish uh, time known as Odalger. Okay? Inigo Ed Regalado, he was a son of a popular writer during the Spanish time known as Odalger. Odalger. Inigo Ed Regalado, Odalger. Next, more facts. Juan Crisostomo Soto, the father of Kapampangan literature. Juan Crisostomo Soto, the father of Kapampangan literature. Just memorize that. Juan Crisostomo Soto, the father of Kapampangan literature. Pedro Bocanig, his name was derived from the word Bocanigan, and one thing that you need to remember about this person is that he is the father of father of Ilocano, excuse me, literature. Father of Ilocano literature, father of Ilocano literature, Pedro Bocanig. Now we have Jose Garcia Villa, the first to break away from the colonial forms and themes of Philippine poetry. Placed the Philippines on the literary map with the publication of his book books in the US. So Jose Garcia Villa, JGV. JGV. He is the first to break away from the conventional forms and themes of Philippine poetry, placed who placed the Philippines on the literary map with the publications of his books in the US. Almost done. We're down to the last uh, 4 slides. Okay, so the good fight. Remember that this is the title of President Manuel Quezon's autobiography, The Good Fight. Without Seeing the Dawn, this is a literary piece that tells of the grim experiences of war during the Japanese occupation, and it was written by Stevan Haveliana. Without Seeing the Dawn. This tells of the grim experiences of war during the Japanese occupation, was written by Stevan Haveliana. Have come, I'm here. It was written by Jose Garcia Villa. So do you remember the um thing we talked about last time? Jose Garcia Villa was the first to break away from the conventional forms and themes of Philippine poetry, who placed the Philippines on the literary map with the publication of his books in the US. So one of his known work is Have Come, am here. Okay, so just remember that title. Now, Genoveva Edrosa, okay, he was the author of Kwento ni Mabuti. Okay, so one thing I do when I encounter some titles that are unfamiliar, I go to YouTube and search for summaries of this story so that I would have an idea on how the story goes. Okay, and I think this is one of the stories that I need to look into, and you also need to look into, so that even after the exam, you know how to explain this to your students. Okay, the next key person that we have here on the list is Jose F. Lacaba, who is the author of Days of Disquiet, Nights of Rage, and he is also the first. He's also the writer of the first quarter's storm and related events. Okay, next, Anak. Okay, you can see the title here, Anak. And this is the song that you have to be familiar with. I think you've seen this, you've heard this song on the radio or played on the radio. So this song is was written by Freddie Aguilar, performed by Freddie Aguilar, and it became an instant success because of the spirit and emotions revealed in it. Nang isilang ka sa mundong ito, laking tuwa ng magulang mo. Like that, right? Do you remember that song? That's Anak. Next, Pista ng Pelikulang Filipino or Filipino. It's the festival which lasted usually for a month, and only Filipino films were shown in all theaters in Metro Manila. Next, you have to remember that in 1958, bilingual education was initiated by the Board on National Education and continued up to the period of martial rule in 1972 of September 21st of 1972, and resulted in the deterioration of English in the different levels of education. It was only after 10 years of military rule and some changes on the life of the Filipino which started the new society, martial rule was at last lifted on January 2, 1981. So, uh, pagkatapos ng 10 taon na pamumuno ng mga militar at ilang pagbabago sa buhay ng mga Pilipino, nagsimula ang panibagong lipunan at natanggal lang yung martial rule sa Pilipinas noong January 2, 1981. So imagine a new year, a day after the new year of 1981, natapos yung martial rule. Now, another keyword that we have to remember is the Third Republic. I think this will also fall under Saksai, but we can also remember this as part of the Philippine literature. So, the Third Republic is also known as the New Republic of the Philippines under the leadership of ex-President Marcos. Okay, we're almost done. Laban ng Bayan Ko. So, this is a key literary work. Um, but in musical form. So this song was composed by Coretha and Eric and sung by Coretha during the National Unification Conference of the Opposition in 1985 March. Okay, so Freddie Aguilar revived the song Bayan Ko, which was written by Jose Corazon de Jesus and C. de Guzman during the American period. And we also have to remember that Bulletin Today is the newspaper that became um, the opposition against the government. Okay, so there are not a lot of facts that we may have covered, but I hope that this will help as you prepare for your coming licensure exam. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Until next time, bye. See you.